acclaimed Abuja-based human rights activist Kenechukwu Okeke yesterday instituted a lawsuit against about 50 young Nigerians for their alleged role in promoting the recent NSAS protest against police brutality in Lagos, southwest of Nigeria. For this one, we shall be speaking with Liborous Oshoma, a lawyer and a lead counsel, Liborous Oshoma's chambers. We shall be taking him up on the decision of the Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu to initiate steps towards abolishing the pensions for former governors of the state. Liborous, it's a pleasure talking to you this morning. I'd like to start with the lawsuit by Kenechukwu that he calls himself an activist. And he started this lawsuit against, 50 Nigerians that participated in the NSAS protest, some that were not even on the protest ground. And what even made up his list? How did he even collate his list in the first place? I'd like you to throw more light on this. Is it a case we should look at critically, or like some people have said in some quarters, it's a joke?
Thank you. I would say that it's a case we need to look at critically because there's a local adage that says the wolf cried at night and the child died in the morning, that there must be a correlation between the death of that child and the wolf that cried at night. Secondly, under the Criminal Procedure Code in the North, it was allowed, the Criminal Procedure Code in the North, before now, allowed either a police officer or a private citizen to file a first information before a magistrate, who will in turn review whether a prima facie case had been established. And if the magistrate reviews that the prima facie case has been established, will now in turn draft a charge against such persons named in the first information. That section was, adopted in the Administration of Criminal Justice Act. And so, in this case, the federal government had warned that they were going to deal decisively with people who allege, promoters of the NSAS protests. And then from nowhere, you hear of one Kenechukwu that you have never heard of before, filing a first information before a magistrate court, asking that person named in the charge be charged before, be brought before the court to answer to charges bordering on destruction of his properties and that they connived. The first question you will ask yourself is if the magistrate court in Abuja has jurisdiction to try persons of an offense that was not committed within the magisterial jurisdiction of that court. And so if the answer is yes or no, that they don't have such jurisdiction, and then you see also the government spokesperson has said they were going to deal decisively with certain persons. Definitely they would have to use somebody. And so that's why I said we shouldn't just see these as a rabble-rouser or somebody seeking for attention. I see the hand of government behind all of this. This is my personal opinion on the basis of what we already know or what we have heard. I also quickly, permit me, listen to the acting DG of the National Broadcasting Commission just now. And from his answers, you will see arrogance, from government's point of view. All the question he was asked, he didn't answer any. It was all about the broadcasting code. And you even talked about fair hearing. And he said he was not in their position to grant fair hearing. And so when you look at all of this and then coming on the heel of, and then the first information by Kenechukwu, on the heel of all of this fine and government position that the action embarrassed the government. And yet this same government is talking about setting up a panel of inquiry and addressing all the issues that led to the protest in the first place. Why those panels of inquiry are busy looking at the issues? The government is busy using pseudo-activists to charge people before courts that do not even have jurisdiction to try such matters. then you will know that the government had not learned nothing and they are not ready to give justice.
Well, Liborous, good morning. There's one other case I would like you to respond to, which is the ex parte motion that was filed on behalf of the CBN governor as a plaintiff, an applicant, with regard to 20 persons whose accounts, bank accounts, had already been suspended. And the grounds for this, according to that motion, is about terrorism financing and money laundering. That is one. And then two, the persons who were listed in Kenechukwu Okeke case and also in the CBN governor's case, they've all been speaking up. They think that this is a joke. But should they take it as a joke, or they should move a step further and maybe also, seek to enforce their own rights?
Like I said, they shouldn't see this as a joke because from the body language and the position of government, it seems they are busy looking for how to instill fear in everybody, from protesters, even people who didn't protest, to lawyers who, one way or the other, offered legal services to some of the protesters, to media houses also. Government is hell-bent on instilling fear. And so this is not the time for people to sit down and say, this is a joke taken too far. Like you rightly asked before the program, is the job of the CBN to investigate, bank accounts? And secondly, if you feel, we're still talking about the right of fair hearing, if you feel that somebody has violated the law, wouldn't it have been appropriate in a country where we are still shouting, crying of hunger? Wouldn't it have been appropriate for you to at least extend, a query or an invitation to such person to come and answer to those infractions rather than go to court? In some cases, some of the account had been frozen even before the ex parte order was obtained, because if you remember in the program you had with Atedo Peter's side, he did mention explicitly that the banks have no such power to freeze account, and that what was brewing, there were going to be backlash from the owners of such account. And then another germane question would be, if CBN goes to court to obtain ex parte orders against named persons, where the banks part of the suits, can the CBN by that order issue directive to the banks to freeze account of people you have not heard from? Then secondly, also, we all know that ex parte orders last for maximum of 14 days. That is the rule, except there is a motion on notice extending the order via an interlocutory application. But in this case, you grant an ex parte order against account holder for 180 days. What is the validity of such order against the rules of courts and the Constitution as provided for? So when you look at all of this, you just know that government is hell-bent on instilling fear and also clamping down on dissenting voices. And so it is not something that you want to sit down and say it's a joke taken too far. They should all engage their solicitors and ensure that all the orders are challenged in court. And I know that a court cannot be that docile. Most of these orders would definitely be vacated. Take, for example, when Sowore called for a revolution now, at the end of the day, the DSS arrested him, kept him in custody, even defied the same court that they hurriedly rushed him to, at a point threatened the judge for granting bail. But when the pressure became too much, they allowed him, and what became of that case today? And so no matter how much they try to threaten or instill fear in people, if without addressing the major issues, the problem, the poverty, the killings, the hunger, the insecurity, and the police brutality that gave rise to this challenge, a time will come so soon that the people they address as thugs will unite with the educated ones, and there will be no hiding place for all of them, including the governors, the DGs of all of these agencies, parastatals and government organizations, the time to begin to address the germane issues that led to that fallout is now, and not to begin to look at whether a news item embarrassed the government. Also, please quickly permit me, the issue of embarrassment to government, who determines it? Who determines what is fake news? Is it you that sit down there as a DG of a broadcasting organization, or the courts? If you feel, you say somebody, a BBC reporter said what she saw, why do you believe the BBC reporter and refuse to believe the other person who said what he saw was contrary to what the BBC reporter said? So you choose to believe one, and then any other person that reports that contrary opinion, you find the person. For me, that is high-handedness, that's arrogance, and that cannot stand in a democratic environment.
Thank you, Liborous. So what are the options available now to those 50 people who were joined in this suit?
The option for me is for them to challenge the jurisdiction of the courts to even determine that first information. Because we all know that when you file a criminal charge, the first thing in that charge is that so-and-so offenses were committed within the magisterial jurisdiction, within the jurisdiction of this high court. And so, the magisterial jurisdiction of Abuja Magistrate Court does not extend to Kogi, not to talk of Lagos. The jurisdiction, the criminal jurisdiction of the High Court of the FCT does not extend to Kogi, not to talk of in Lagos. So the people you said connived in Lagos via Twitter are these people residents in Abuja. Were these people in Abuja at this time? Was this offense committed by them in Abuja? You're talking about destruction. Why are you not bothered looking for those people that destroyed your properties? Why are we so fixated on people we felt, promoted or agreed with the fact that there should be end to police brutality? Why is the government so fixated on those people? Why is the government not bothered about those that destroyed properties? Because they know that these same people they call hoodlums or thugs are the same people that they use to snatch ballot boxes. They are the same people they use to collect revenue. Go to Oshodi, okay, you will see some of them, running after buses, right there in the presence of policemen. These are people that the same government use to collect revenue. And then when there's crisis like this, they will rather look the other way and look out for people who they can instill fear in and say, okay, yes, these are the promoters of this thing. And so if you arrest the Goliath, the army will scatter. But unfortunately, they are missing the point. Because also, you set up a panel of inquiry to look into the issues of police brutality. Are you not preempting the conclusion or the report of the panel when you have preemptively concluded by your action that some persons, you have already indicted some persons and you must arrest them and charge them before the court? So what is the essence of that panel of inquiry? Even though most of the panel of inquiry, for me, do not even have a jurisdiction to take on those matters. We have been calling on the federal government to constitute the board of the National Human Rights Commission so that the board of the National Human Rights Commission can validly set up inquiry into activities of human rights abuses. In the entire globe, the provisions of the Nigerian Human Rights Commission Act 2004 or so, they are very explicit and broad. It covers every abuse, every human rights abuse you can think of. You can even imagine, even the ones you can't imagine. But the Commission of Inquiry laws of the various states is limited to the jurisdiction of, or the powers of the states, or matters that the state governor can act on. So that's to tell you that it's either they are not ready to give justice. All of this issue of panel of inquiry was just, okay, they want a panel, we'll give them a panel. And because if they were indeed ready, you will not keep some people busy, some well-respected judges and senior advocates, you keep them busy in a panel of inquiry while you are freezing accounts of people you allege to have demonstrated. Then lastly, on the issue of the accounts that were frozen, the question you now ask yourself is, if these accounts were frozen by the bank via a court order, then you can now begin to talk about legality or illegality. But this case here is that the fact that the CBN gave that instruction is to traverse the powers of the CBN. Even the judge that granted that order ought not to have granted the order in the first place, because you cannot, via an ex parte order, empower or grant powers, donate powers to CBN that they do not have. An ex parte order is to preserve a rest. An ex parte order is granted in a case of urgency. But in this case, there is no urgency in the matter. Secondly, the action had been completed. And so why grant an ex parte order to freeze an account you said were used to finance NSAS that had ended, and you're looking into what led to it, and then yet you are granting ex parte orders to freeze those accounts on the knowledge that this is a huge joke, a situation where you just assume that these accounts were used, and so you just list the account and say, "Court, give me an order." A court should rise above this sentiment. If our judges want to be taken seriously, even international climb.
And that's why I kept on asking the question in the course of the week, are our courts really the hope for the common man? One. Two, apart from these court cases, we've seen arrests. There was a harrowing experience of a young girl on television, how police came, called her, tricked her to take her to her brother, take them to her brother, and the brother was taken away and arrested. I mean, what's your reaction to all of this?
You see, that's the case of Eromosele. I listened to the sister, and she's been crying, and she's been crying and shouting to everybody that cares to listen. A situation where you admit in one breath that the people have a right, by virtue of Section 40, to protest, to peaceful assembly. You also admit in another breath that the media, by virtue of Section 22, have a right to also confront government, to enforce the fundamental objectives and directive principles of government. And then in another breath, you take a law that is subservient to the Constitution, and you say that in upholding that law, these persons have violated that law, despite the powers donated to them by the Constitution. For me, that's an abuse. The police also, the same police that people had said, look, this is police, these actions is police brutality, it is ultra-vires the provisions of fair hearing. You call somebody and say, we have a parcel for you. That's the narrative. We have a parcel for you, and then she gets there, they say, okay, take us to your brother, we need to deliver this parcel. Only for you to take them there, they arrest such persons. And then we also know that by the provisions of the same law, such persons are supposed to be brought before the court within 48 hours. And then you arrest them. Even the person that led you to the arrest is not aware of what they were arrested for. You say you are investigating. And then you also deny them from seeing their lawyers. Even when the lawyer brings an application for bail, which ordinarily in Senate society can be granted via the telephone, you say, go bring a written application. It shows that there's something fishing somewhere. And the only conclusion I can reach from this, is that the narrative by Governor El-Rufai, when he was FCT minister, in his book, The Accidental Public Servant, when he said that when he got to the Abuja as FCT minister, in their quest to sanitize the land acquisition in Abuja, they knew that they were going to revoke CFOs. And the first thing they did was to summon all the judges and then tell them, look, we will revoke. I know that after revocation, people are going to come to your court. Please don't grant such requests. And that's the only conclusion I can draw here, that the government would have sat down with some of these judges and said, this is my opinion and this is my conclusion, and I have a premise for it. I would have sat down with them and say, look, we agree that this is happening, but we need you so as not to embarrass the government before the Committee of Nations. We need to curtail all of this that is happening. So we're going to use you to procure orders, ex parte or otherwise, and in some cases refuse them bail. And that's why you find out that even in the case of Sowore, he was dragged before one judge, then subsequently that one will hands up and then move to another. That is what is basically playing out here. We are just postponing the evil days.
Well, thank you very much, Liborous Oshoma. As usual, as always, you didn't disappoint. I want to thank you for your passion, for your commitment, and your faith in the Nigerian project. Thank you very much indeed.